Happy Friday, everyone, and welcome to this week's Local Marketing Institute Q&A session. So glad that you're here, and we're very excited to have our special guest, Navah Hopkins, with us here today. We're going to be talking about local service ads and go kind of a deep dive into that subject. We can answer some other questions as well along the way if you have those. Before we get started, though, I just want to make sure you know if you do want to reach out to Navah, she's at adzuma.com over there. And I believe, Navah, isn't your title VP of Strategic Marketing or something like that?
Yep, it is. I joined the Adzuma team at the beginning of the month. Really excited to help them continue to serve our SMB audiences and the agencies who serve them.
Navah is she's so well known and so well respected in this industry. So we're very, very thrilled to have you here, Navah. You can also find her at Navah F on Twitter. And of course, my co-host, Ben Fisher, you can find him at steadydemand.com and at The Social Dude on Twitter. And Jason Brown, you can find him at reviewfraud.org and at Kaiser Holiday on Twitter. So before we dive into some LSAs, we have a few updates to go over here. Let me get this all set up so I can share this with you all. There we go. A couple quick updates, and of course, there we go. All right. So bring this up over here, and we're ready to go. Jason, I think there was a quick update you had about Google My Business and some products, perhaps leading to some suspensions or them checking a little deeper into some products that are going on. You want to talk a little bit about what's going on with Google and the products?
Sure. So from what we're starting to see, it looks like when you go and add a new product into your Google My Business account, it's either going to be pending review, published, or rejected. And one of the clients that I'm working on right now, their location's been suspended for a couple of weeks now. And Google just this week took a look at their products and just suspended their products. So we're definitely looks like Google is doing some form of enforcement and sweeps like they normally do with posts, but it's just kind of interesting to actually see them go into an account that was already suspended, look at their products and flag and suspend those products as well. So something to keep an eye on.
Great. So bottom line, they're taking a closer look at products, both ones that are being submitted and ones that may have already been submitted.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, the only thing I'll add to that is that, product posts or products in general fall under the content policies, basically. So you just need to pay attention to those policies more than anything else. I personally think this is kind of a precursor to maybe doing shopping through Google My Business. That is a guess. But, usually when they make these kinds of moves, something's coming down the pipe.
Yeah, it definitely ties in line. When we did the e-commerce segment several months ago, we talked about how Google Merchant Center is feeding into multiple different surfaces, including Google My Business. So I could absolutely see that coming down the road. Ben, something with GMB notifications on your phone and how to turn that off.
Yeah. So this is a really quick one, everybody. So Carrie figured out that you can go ahead and now into Google Maps on Android or iPhone and go to your profile, go to settings, and then lo and behold, you have location information. Do you want to get messages about this location? So you can turn it off at your user level. There still is no control or granularity on the listing level, which is what we really want. But if you just never want to see a Google My Business message again from one of your clients, for instance, then you can go ahead and turn this off.
Jason, anything to add to that one?
Nope.
Okay. Hey, Jason, we got a quick question from Tricia, though. She's wanting to know, is there anything specific about the products that GMB doesn't like that's leading to them being in pending status or suspending?
No, nothing at this point in time. So we're waiting for GMB to give us official statements we can roll forward with.
Okay. I think, Ben, though, you're probably right on that. Looking at content guidelines, and probably they're also starting to look and see, are these actually legitimate products too? Because I have seen a lot of people using products to kind of spam things that really aren't products out there.
Maybe.
Haven't seen that?
No, maybe.
I have. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, let's move on to something else here. Interesting one. Jason, you want to talk about Google rewriting some title tags. So this is in the organic search results, not in the Google My Business search results. Do you want to talk a little bit about this?
Yeah, so I think Lily Ray was like one of the first ones to bring this up. And so this has kind of been ongoing dialogue and debate over the week as to whether Google should be rewriting meta titles, where they're getting the meta titles from. It looks like they may be taking information from either H1s. And so it looks like people are going to have to start working on H1 optimization, or they're starting to pick out random alt image tags. So, basically, I think the long and skinny of it is, you need to, check and see how your website URLs are showing up in search results. And start looking, and making sure that you're properly, you're showing up the correct way. And I guess, we're going to now start getting flooded with a bunch of, spam dem emails, saying, hey, offering H1 optimization services or alt image tag optimization services now.
The H1 comes back into importance.
Definitely.
But yeah, go ahead, Navah.
One just interesting thing to note about this, close variants on the paid side. So kind of that intelligent mapping or matching of ideas based off of keywords. That's been a thing for a while now on the paid side. And I'm wondering if they're trying to take that quote unquote intelligent close variant mechanic to almost force us to be in the way that their algorithm processes information. Like, this is not definitive. This is just me putting my conspiracy theory hat on. But I wouldn't be surprised if there is some parity in the logics of how it's doing the rewrites to the close variant mechanics.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Yeah. So just a little follow up on this. People have seen Google using not just maybe they use the title tag, maybe they use the H1 tag. There's also been people who have seen captions from images and even image alt tag being used as a title. The goal behind this, in a follow-up tweet from exchange that Danny Sullivan did, was Google's trying to actually indicate what the content of the page was about. And, anyway, that's what they're trying to do. There's also some talk. There was some interaction back and forth with Danny about possibly giving website owners the ability to maybe through Google Search Console manually overwrite 5 or 6 pages of this so that people don't accidentally do something large scale. I mean, this is a big brouhaha right now. It'll be interesting to see if how this develops out, in basically Google changing the title of your page in the search results. So there you go. There's that one. Let's move on here. Okay. One more little update here. Ben, posts on third-party sites.
Yeah, posts on third-party sites. So I love the title of this article on Search Engine Land. Google Posts can now appear on third-party sites without your knowledge. Slightly misleading, Barry. No, I love you, Barry, by the way. So this message has popped up. Basically, your post will appear on Google services across the web, like Maps and Search, and on third-party sites. The end on third-party sites is probably the part that's getting everybody in a little knit here. And then your post must comply, of course, with policies, right? So back to the content policy. So they're already showing up on Maps and Search. That's been happening forever. The on third-party sites, that's the new piece. And right now, I'm not aware of anything, and I haven't read anything or seen anything, evidence of it being actually on a third-party site yet. Could they allow for enabling of, embedding posts in the future? I absolutely can't see why not. I mean, hate to say it, but that functionality was there with Google Plus, right? So they've got the code base for it.
Yeah, and it's just like here, they embedded Lily Ray's tweet into their article.
Yeah, and that would be fantastic if you think about it for small businesses.
Oh yeah, it'd be great news.
A whole nother source of potential conversions. That'd be great. So, and we do know that with posts that GMB is highly focused on the aspect of conversions. So that would make sense. Again, that's a guess. We don't know this for a fact. But yeah, so that's really what this is all about.
Great. So there was a little quick question, a little discussion going on in the chat about services. So going back to the products back here. There was a little chat about service type businesses using services as products. And is there, any possibility that Google may be cracking down on that and saying, no, it's not an actual product. It's got actually, it's a service. And I think that from the chat, it looks like that's not really an issue. Services are still very legitimate use for the product elements. Any comment on that, Jason or Ben?
No, the only thing I would say about it is that, look, if products were not going to be available to service area-based businesses, then the feature would not be available for service area-based businesses based on category.
Valid point.
Valid
point. All right. Last update, and then we're going to dive into LSAs here. Apple's moving big time on Apple Maps, right? So we know that the whole process of submitting and managing your listing on Apple Maps has completely changed a few weeks ago. They're now doubling down on quote unquote reviews. Ben and I had an interesting discussion before this that it's not really reviews, it's more ratings. But Mike Blumenthal wrote a great article on this. I'll put that in the chat for you all, talking about the fact that, hey, on Apple Maps, you can now do a thumbs up, thumbs down. You can recommend a place or not recommend a place. So it's much more binary. It's not a 1 through 5, kind of going a la Facebook in that regard. But once you do that, then it's giving you the option to do certain sub rankings on this. And that does seem to vary a little bit business to business. They've especially dove in here for certain areas. Nate, you're absolutely right. It's Apple Business Register. That is a terrible name for it. But, and Jerry's absolutely right. This is only for certain categories right now. You do expect this to open up, and they're probably going to do their most popular ones to begin with. Also, just a heads up, Apple Maps is cracking down on service area businesses who have been listing themselves out there. It used to be you could be a service area business and put in an address out there and no problem. They're now beginning to crack down on that. They're cracking down, and right now their stance is they only want businesses that actually have a physical location that customers can visit. So that will pop down here down the road. And yes, Joey, we do want to update our guide to Apple Maps at some point here, and Apple Business Register and what that is here. So hopefully we'll get a chance to get that done here pretty soon. But anyway, I put that link out in the articles. You can keep an eye on that. But it's interesting that Apple's pushing hard on their own mapping software right now. And by the way, it's also very interesting that conversely to this, there's a big brouhaha right now about Google Maps saying that unless you, basically the premise is, unless you allow Google Maps to utilize your data and your driving information, your telemetrics, they will not allow you to get turn-by-turn directions. That's the big brouhaha out there. So there's a big privacy thing coming on with Google Maps. So Google Maps is kind of cranking down saying, hey, we're going to collect your telemetrics. If you don't let us collect your telemetrics, we're going to not give you turn-by-turn directions in Google Maps. Meanwhile, Apple Maps is doubling down now and really hitting their maps hard. And of course, they're making big pushes into privacy. This is going to be an interesting battle starting to develop out here. Any thoughts on that, guys? Navah, any thoughts?
Go ahead.
Go ahead,
I was going to say I welcome it. I think the more competition we can actually have between different partners and players, I think it's warranted. I mean, I think we've gotten too much with Google being the end all be all, and as Ben and I deal with a lot of suspension cases, when we start noticing that a business gets taken down, knocked offline, and next thing you know, their phones just stop ringing. So I think if we can start removing ourselves from Google and start getting business and traction elsewhere, I think it's great, And I
think what'll be interesting is to see how they deal with review spam or if there will be a lot of review spam. Like for instance, will all reviews have to be tied to an Apple ID? I mean, that obviously can be gamed, but it's a little bit more of a restrictive ecosystem, I guess you could say.
So
Go ahead, Navah.
I just on the privacy component, because that's one that I don't think enough people will think about in the early days, and it is something we're thinking worth building in. Apple is being very intelligent in creating its walled garden of data for a programmatic offering that will eventually come down the road. So I very much agree. It is fantastic that we have a competitor product to Google Maps and Microsoft Places, who's that, Waze, great advertising and tool. But it is also important to note that things that are iOS are less and less transparent on a reporting standpoint. You will have to take much more at face value. So for example, with the iOS 15 update, like 5 days from now, you will not be able to tell if people opened your email if it was on an iOS device. And people are very used to building strategies around that. So yes, I think it's a great thing. Yes, I think we'll want to factor that in. But I think this will be more a case of channels working together as opposed to a full replacement. Because I don't necessarily know businesses are in a place yet in terms of their internal reporting and their internal sources of truth to go completely without the data that we're so far used to getting, seeing those reviews, being able to flag something as spam. Like I don't see that reporting functionality being nearly as robust because of their privacy first stances.
We talked a little bit about this a few weeks ago with the iOS 15 changes coming out, not being basically, bottom line, not going to be able to really track who opened and didn't open your email. This is going to affect anywhere from 30 to 50% of any business's emails that go out. So we did talk a little bit about that. Also, they're now doing something with Safari and with IP obfuscation, so that basically, if you're using Safari on an iOS device, they can't track really where you're from. So all of this is coming down, and now we're seeing it here. The privacy war is now being fought also on Maps, Google Maps versus Apple Maps. I will throw this out, and Navah, I completely agree with you. This is not necessarily, even though it's being framed as a altruistic, we're the company that protects your privacy move by Apple. There's nothing altruistic about it. It's just they're no longer going to share this data with anybody else, so that they're going to keep all this data. They're going to use all this data. They're going to develop products off of all of our email data and our telematics data and our browsing data, right? They're going to launch they've seen Google. They're not going to sit back and just not go after all those ad dollars on that front. So I'm 100% agree with you, Navah. This is not altruistic. This is definitely business motivated, being framed as something altruistic. All right. And Donald, I know you mentioned Waze in the app, and I said Waze who. I was just being facetious. I know about Waze, but Waze is not a huge player in the maps space, even though it is out there. So I was just being silly with that. Let's move on here, and I want to dive into some LSAs. So let's talk about LSAs. Navah, I'm going to let you kind of take it from here. Why don't you give us some initial thoughts? Then we got a lot of good questions about the LSAs coming in now.
Sure. So local service ads, since the product came out back, I think it was in 2016, was when the very first betas started to hit the market. It has been a product near and dear to my heart. Local LSAs, or local service ads, are where you, the business, have gone through a background check. So you are vetted by Google to provide a service. Rather than paying per click, you pay per call that connects with you, that there's a recording. Or message if you turn on those messages. The beautiful thing about local service ads is that rather than it being you have to have the biggest budget and throw all of your money at really expensive paid search, or you have to be super creative and own a Facebook channel or display channel, it's very simply, how close are you and how well did you take care of your customer? And yes, how much are you willing to bid per lead? Sorry.
I was just going to throw out there, and for people who aren't familiar with local services ads, it's a different type of ad product from Google, and you can see them up here and up here. They're only available for certain business types, and they are different from regular Google ads or even Google ads you might see down in here. They're also, Navah, aren't they typically also always cost per lead basis, right?
Correct. Cost per lead. And you actually, if Google cannot provide you a recording of the call, you actually get that money back. So there has to be a recording of proof that there was in fact a conversation. So they're a really great format. One of the other reasons why they're really interesting and they cause a lot of conversation is that they actually take the very, very top spot. So as you can see, they rank above the traditional paid search ad, they rank above the map pack, and they rank above the traditionally organic listings. So having that spot in local service ads is a very powerful thing. It's also an extremely, extremely cost-effective way to drive leads if you don't, say, have the 5 to 10K minimum budgets when you're looking at traditional paid search. So I know we're going to have a full discussion about all the ins and outs, but basically they are pay per lead, review-driven, proximity-driven placements that are designed to drive you calls and or messages to your designated email.
Yeah, well, there's one thing I want to say too. There's another reason also why these are so important. It kind of ties into what you were saying about them being at the top. So you've got the 3 at the top of search, right? You can, of course, click more plumbers in Tampa to get an entirely larger list. However, we all know that a lot of people use their phones and look on mobile for what they're looking for, right? Mm-hmm. And there's 2 that are sandwiched at the top of your search results for local service ads. So people are seeing that before they get into organic, well before they get into a map pack. So that's another thing. It's like, yeah, it's basically, in a sense, it's almost kind of like rank and rent. But yeah, I mean, it's killer for all the clients that we have doing. I know you have Navah as well. I mean, you've got some clients who are spectacularly happy.
Yeah. So this is, I can't share the exact client, but I'm happy to share the numbers around it. We had a client that had effectively a 10x return on their local service ad spend. So they spent about $3,000 in the course of the quarter and made 30. Alternatively, through their real estate client, they should have gotten $58,000 in commission. They ended up walking away with $21,000. It was heart-wrenching. So when you think about local service ads, it's not just about ranking. It's not just about paid search versus SEO. It's also about what industries does this disrupt, particularly on the Google screen side. So think white collar services, lawyers, CPAs, real estate agents. Obviously, on the Google guaranteed, more blue collar services, think plumbers, locksmiths, maids, things like that. Yes, that is also a very viable channel. It's just that on the white labels or white collar side, you typically are actually going to have other services that this now disrupts. The other really interesting thing about specifically Google Guaranteed is that Google will actually guarantee up to $2,000 worth of damages, say the customer isn't happy. So it's an additional just overhead saving mechanic because they are putting their guarantee on it. And so it's an additional way to shore up a bad customer experience. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. We have tons of questions coming in here on this, which is great. That's what this is all for. This is a really, I think, a good question here. This is from Rachel. Which is more effective, regular Google ads or LSAs? And is there any situation in which you would use both?
Ben, do you want to go first or do you want me to?
I'll just live. Sure, I'll lead off, but I'll let you take all the credit. No. By the way, everybody, I just put a list of the categories from Google that can utilize local service ads. So if you've got clients in those areas, definitely should talk to them. Yeah, if you want to take a look at the one, is that the one I put in the?
That's when you put in there. That's just the guarantee. Where's the categories?
It's hard to find. I'll grab it again.
Yeah, we can
Okay,
we can
thanks.
put in the full list.
Yeah. It's anyway. So as far as like ads versus local service ads, my opinion on that is why not do both? I really don't understand it. And Nava's going, yep.
That's Navah approved.
We need a
But
seal.
like there are the reasons about why to do both are going to vary.
Yes.
And there's
Go for
there's
it.
pragmatic mechanics behind why you might choose to begin with local service ads and then add paid later. There's also reasons why you might choose not to begin with local service ads because say you don't have that minimum 3.0 review score. And you're just, it doesn't matter how much you want to use the channel, you're not going to get approved initially. So there's a number of reasons why you might start with one or the other, do both. But it also comes down to budget. So I mentioned earlier that like $5,000 to $10,000 a month. If you have less than that to invest, I honestly don't think Google search makes a ton of sense if you're in a services-based business because you have to think about your margins, what your customer is worth. Local service ads is much easier to fit into margins. Traditional paid search, you can pay on the legal side $300, $400, $900 a click, and you're not even guaranteed the business. Whereas with local service ads, you might pay like $150, $175, $200 for the lead, but that's a lead that you can say, okay, I heard exactly what happened. I know exactly where that went right, went wrong. My intake didn't respond within like 20 minutes. And so like the lead died. That's on me, but like that was a qualified lead. Whereas with paid search, yes, it's great, but like there's gaps there. So sorry, Ben, I know I gave you the floor first and then I jumped right in.
That's awesome. But really what you just said there, I think is really important to latch onto, and that's qualified lead. Pay-per-click is a shotgun, basically, right? You are praying that somebody falls into your web and they are the right lead. I mean, I do pay-per-click and I get it all the time where I get people who like, they're not coming in for suspensions. They're coming in for a AdWords account suspension, not GMB, right? So you get all sorts of bad leads. With LSA, the chances of getting bad leads are extremely low. Unless you're in real estate, they'll come in for rent, for instance, versus new home sales, right? But those can be disputed if those are not on your profile. So, and that's the thing is that in your profile, you have a lot of granular control with LSA. I say a lot, and I kind of put that a little bit in quotes because there are some things that you can't control. But for the most part, you can select exactly what you want. So I just signed up like a person who does heating and air conditioning, but they only do installs. And so when going through the list, they said, well, we only want installs. So we just basically didn't check off any of the other repairs or anything like that. And so now they can only get what they want. And if they get something that's not on their profile, it can be disputed very easily.
So great question just came in. Is that isn't this basically similar like to Angie's List and HomeAdvisor? So
yes and no. One of the reasons why I would actually say no to the Angie's List and HomeAdvisor is that you have much more peer vetted and it's a much more accessible range of reviewings of services. Whereas when you're looking at what's it called? These services, there's two factors that go in. Number one is people are paying for a zip code. And so it's kind of like the ZipRecruiter problem where everyone buys all the various or access to a market and you might or might not get that value and it's kind of cannibalization. The other factor is you are limited to the reviews that are on these sorts of platforms as opposed to the Google width and breadth. I did want to take a quick step back though on spend to qualify what I meant by the 5 to 10,000. There are folks that are able to do say branded campaigns or small campaigns at $500, $1,000 a month. The thing to think about is that all of the ad platforms are algorithms. They run off of data. And so when you have a super small budget, you actually are making it harder for the algorithm to learn what serves you best. So another reason why LSAs are so great is that it kind of takes, it's a separate system of how it ranks. It's a completely different portal. They're completely different entities. They're actually completely different teams at Google. So you're able to benefit off of that smaller spend and have that smaller spend go further, as opposed to on search, where yes, you might get 1 or 2 leads a month that are interesting, and that might be fine. But in most cases, when you're doing paid search, you want volume. You want that width and breadth of qualified leads. So that's typically why I caution folks against ongoing paid search if you have less than 3,000 to 5,000, whereas social, go nuts. Display, go nuts. Video, go nuts, because it's you're able to get more out of that spend, and it's able to fuel the algorithm in a much more efficient way.
I can only second that. I had a client start up last week, and they're like, well, we can only really take on maybe 1 extra job a week, if that. So they were like, can we just set it for $75, our max budget, right? So max budget, max bid, $75.
Just don't do it.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, that's what I told them, but they were like, no, let's just try it. And I was like, okay, we'll see what happens in 2 weeks. And I just checked, and they have not gotten 1 lead yet. So cautionary tale, put in a little bit of money. Don't worry.
Yeah.
People might not spend it all.
So let's talk about a couple of fundamental questions I think is important for people to understand. So, Donald basically said, well, hey, if these 3 are up here, who gets these 3 spots? And really, it's just like any other thing, like who gets this ad? It's all based upon the bid and the algorithm. It's based upon your proximity to the place. It's based upon how much they're bidding for the leads. It's based upon how many people are competing for that particular area. So you're never going to own, unless you're in a very small market, you're never going to own the LSA section on Google, right? Right.
Well, the only way you would own it is if you're cheating.
Don't cheat.
Yep.
Which
Accounts get suspended if you cheat.
Yes.
Yes, exactly. And I mean, but there's this one person in the company out in LA that we all know of. Well, we know of as far as PEs go, but that he's got the top 3 spots. They're all fake locations, except for one, maybe.
And the hammer's going to drop at some point in time. Like you keep playing with fire. You upset Google long enough, or you upset other entities, and it's a recipe for disaster. So yeah, don't mess around, especially because you get an account level suspension and it's bye-bye.
And also, when it comes to LSAs, this is not like a Google My Business suspension that you can recover from. If you get hit on LSA, you're gone. You will have to rebrand your entire company. You'll have to get a new GMB. You'll have to get new reviews, everything. They do not let you back in. You're basically SOL.
Don't cheat.
So
cheat right now, right, Jason?
Yeah. So do yourself a favor. Avoid the Lenny Kravitz reviews or the Pete Buttigieg reviews. Like, we all know that those are fake. Just knock that stuff off. I can't believe I have to even say that. Stop with the games. Just work on your marketing. Stop the games.
There you go.
And one thing I want to tail end on there, because I just saw something from Chris saying that 1 has 3, right? It is completely acceptable to have multiple LSAs, especially if you have multiple practice areas. So let's say you're a PI, criminal, and family law, right? You can have 3. You can separate them out. And Navah will probably get into the reasons for that, because there are very good specific reasons for it. And and if you have actual real locations, Google will do the verification on those and allow them through if they're real. So that's a whole nother aspect of the things. So it's not just because you see somebody out there with a ton of locations, that doesn't mean they're fake. So don't go reporting them.
And on that note, unless you wanted to move on to a different question, Eric, I give you veto power.
Go for it. Go for it.
So Google has come out and said that it is very challenging for their algorithm to support more than 3 location services per profile. So when you are setting up your local service ads campaign, you will have a ad account that is net new that you associate with your local service ads profile. If you know, to Ben's point, say you have those different services, you would want to have a profile per, and you would have them in basically what's called an MCC or an account shell. So you want to, at the beginning of your local service ads journey, think about what are the areas of my business that I need to drive volume to, and how easy do I want to make it for me to get support. The other kind of hidden reason why you might decide that you want to go the MCC route, particularly if you're a larger business where you have lots of different locations, there's a different service team at Google for accounts with 20 profiles or less, or 21 or more. And I promise you the support is better if you're in 21 or more. It's night and day. So if you are the kind of business that has 4 or 5 different major areas of service, so for ranking purposes, you want to make sure that you rank for those. And also from a location standpoint, your budget is able to support those locations and have the proximity benefit. You will want to start off on that MCC route first. If you're just a single market, you do one thing, you do it super well, go nuts with a single profile. But I do find that most businesses, particularly on the Google screen side, will actually benefit from having the MCC first. And of course, if you're an agency or if you're a franchise, obviously you're on the MCC side. But if just because you have one business in one location doesn't necessarily mean that it needs to be one profile. You might actually want multiple profiles.
Hey, speaking of which, I think it's a good time to lead into what is the difference between Google Screened and Google Guaranteed? You'll see that on both with LSA ads. Some businesses are Google Screened, some businesses are Google Guaranteed. What's the difference?
So there's one simple difference. It's really silly. Google Screened, they've screened you. You've gone through the background check. It's great. Google Guaranteed, if you mess up, Google will pay up to $2,000 to make sure that the customer is okay. That's the long and short of it. Now, with that said, there is a difference on the background check. So with Google Guaranteed, every customer-facing employee will need to go through background checks. Google Screened, because they're not going to be out $2,000 if you mess up, they only really need you to have the owner or like the main practitioner go through the process. So the background check is the most grueling part of this entire thing. Once you go through that, you're great. And I shout out to Ben and his amazing team. They have a really streamlined process for getting folks through that background check. So like if you need help with it, absolutely hit Ben up. But like that is the part that trips people up is the background check.
Yeah, I will say
I've seen a couple people in the chat saying the background check process is a real pain.
It's the worst.
Yeah, but
Ben makes it great.
Yeah, thank you, Navah. The thing is that with the background checks is you have to actually be super OCD and careful about it. Because if you fail a background check, while there's some form of reprieve, it's not very elegant. If you fail LSA completely because of your background check, you have to wait a whopping 6 months before you can even think about reapplying. And they don't tell you exactly, by the way, what's wrong. It's just kind of like everything else googly, is that you just got to kind of figure it out. We had one that they had a location that was denied, and we found out way at the end of it that one of the lawyer partners had a DUI from like 8 years ago, and that was actually tossed out of court, but it was enough to fail the background check. So
the other thing just to bear in mind is there's actually 2 teams for local services. There's the sales team where they're like really motivated to get you set up. Then there's the service team. And what's the amount of information that the service team has is significantly better than the sales team. So one of my hidden tricks of dealing with the background check is actually once I put it through and it's taking longer than the 2 to 3 weeks that like it's supposed to take, is I'll actually call up the service team, have my account ID ready, have all of my specifics ready, and like, hey, help me. what's going on? And they are actually motivated by customer love. They have like genuinely an amazing team over there. They like actually care about you and your business and your sanity, and they will find you an answer. So if you're getting really frustrated and stuck with the sales team whose job is to get you set up, definitely be empowered to go get help from the service team. And I'll plop the number in chat in a moment.
Great. One of the things that I've seen, by the way, for most businesses, they typically require a business check and an owner check, along with some liability and licensing stuff, right? And I've seen that whether it's for a white collar thing like criminal lawyer, or even for a blue collar thing like countertops, right? Where I've seen it really starts to get intense is when you start getting into what they call duress or time sensitive urgent need categories, garage door repair, HVAC repair. When you're doing that, they then typically will now also require not only the business and the owner check, but a check down to the actual service technician who's coming into your house.
It's actually worse than that. It's actually worse than that for garage door.
Yeah. Well, for garage door, there's this whole advanced verification process.
Oh, yeah. It's the same thing that locksmiths have to go through, basically. It's just as terrible. And with those, you can get stuck into the screening process for months on end, and you can't kick it loose, unfortunately.
Yep. All right. Let's move on to some other questions here. We talked about the background checks. Oh, let's talk about reviews. Can you talk a little bit about, we see there's 154 reviews for these law offices, 207 reviews. Where are these reviews coming from, and how does this interrelate with the Google My Business reviews?
So the reviews actually are dynamically pulled, not dynamically pulled. A Google rep will actually connect them, but then they're dynamically fed back and forth. Once you have your local service ad set up, here's the rub, and this is very important. You will be asked in your setup to have a local service ads link set up that you ask for reviews. Any reviews that you get through there will populate on your Google My Business. If you ever stop advertising, those reviews will go away. So the reviews that come from either will rank the same. They matter the same. They're equivalent in the eyes of Google. I would put it out there, though, that the reviews that you get through your GMB are more secure. And so it's not that they rank better, it's that they are there. And it's funny because Ben and I had a great conversation about this exact topic at PubCon. And it's like, no, they're the same, but one is risky. So.
Yeah, exactly. It's a great myth that everybody has, is like, oh, it's a verified review, so therefore it's got to be better than a GMB review. No, sorry, that's a total myth. It's been tested, kind of, and it's they weigh the same. But like Navah was saying, is like, think about, where do you want to put your things? What basket do you want to put it into? Do you want to put it into GMB, which you can reply to reviews, or do you want to put them into LSA, which you cannot reply to the reviews? And on top of that, if LSA ever goes away, or God forbid, you lose your LSA, right? Which can happen. You lose those reviews. They're gone. They're gone forever. At least with GMB, you can get them back if you get suspended and you lose your listing.
Right. So the reviews associated with your Google Local Services ad are a combination of both your Google My Business reviews and reviews specific to LSAs. But if you ever stop doing LSAs, or you happen to lose it, all those LSA reviews go away. Your Google My Business reviews are still there. So, hey, if you happen to get the occasional LSA review, awesome. Sounds like what you and Navah are saying, though, is, hey, don't put forth effort trying to collect LSA reviews. Instead, use the effort to put those towards your GMB reviews. Is that what you're saying?
Nope, incorrect.
Okay.
So the incorrect part of that is to get an LSA verified review, you do have to put in some effort. It's a little bit of effort, but you have to put in effort, right? You've got to send out the request. It goes out, it's tokenized, and it's specific to that user, basically. But if you don't do that, you're not going to get them. I like to say is that you have to strike a balance between the two, because those reviews that are verified can be used by other users to make a decision on whether to use you or not. So it's a conversion factor is what it comes down to.
I think I agree with both of you. It's just that I think we were talking about two different things. One was the question of just like, if you have a choice, put effort into like your GMB, but like do both. And just bear in mind that also you can decide what the link is. So when you're setting up your different profiles, put some thought into branding. So say you want to have a link for each location or each service, be empowered to do that. Because that link, once set, is set, and it's not changing. So just be mindful about that.
All right, I'm going to kind of move us into a little bit of a lightning round here. Well, we're not going to go real deep into some of these. Let's see if we can keep them pretty high up here. So a good friend, Andy, asked, do you track links in an LSA profile? So there is a link here, obviously, to the website. Are you tracking that through? Does Google LSA track that? Is that kind of as a lead for LSA? Do you use something like UTM parameters to track links that come in from your LSA profile? What do you recommend?
You mean for the form fill?
For the URL here.
I don't, but it's not a bad idea to try it.
Okay.
What about you, Navah? Have you tried that?
To be honest, the best use cases I've seen of LSAs have been when the person doesn't look at the website at all.
Yeah, when they actually just
they
fill
have
out the
that
lead right
urgency
here.
and they're just calling. They don't even want to look at the site.
Sure.
Yeah.
I do actually. There was a comment in the questions that I just want to put some context out there. Google will average out your daily budget across 30.4 days, and will have to double your spend in a given day in order to hit what that average is across 30.4. Depending on the time of the month that you change your budget and depending on the bidding strategy that you run, it is very possible that you will rack up a huge budget or a huge spend without intending to. But this is also the other reason why I caution folks against small budgets, because on the small budgets, Google needs that much more data to learn. And so it's going to be gasping for air, except it's Google, so it's money. So this is another reason why you just want to be very, very careful when you are setting up a campaign. Be mindful how much those auction prices are. So how many clicks can fit in your day? And is that enough volume to generate quality leads? Because when you're investing in any paid media channel, you're paying for quality leads. So part of that discussion around what your budget is has to also revolve around what is your customer worth to you. And this is another reason why I love local service ads, because you can actually really distill that down into, okay, this call cost me $175. I know that I will make probably about $5,000 to $6,000 from the customer. This is a no-brainer. I will pay for those leads all day, every day, as opposed to I make $5,000 to $6,000 on the customer, but my average cost per click, if I were to pay for this outright, would be about $200, $300 a click. I would need to pay basically the price of an individual customer to maybe get one qualified lead in my day. So just from an equation standpoint, it doesn't make sense. So that's the more you invest, ironically enough, the cheaper your cost per leads are. It's just,
Yep.
It's one of those frustrating things that like your budget, if you invest at too low of a level, you shouldn't invest at all, as opposed to Google just taking your money for the sake of it.
All right. Good question. Hey, could you comment quickly on Comrad Saam's recent article about the North Carolina bar going after Google local service ads? And for those of you who aren't familiar with that, I'll be glad to put this link in the chat. But bottom line, they're a little more concerned about the fact that Google is recording these conversations, which could be attorney-client privilege.
And it is something to totally worry about. This is only the first. right? Once we see California get involved, Florida and Texas get involved, it's game over for everything. But it's extremely true. Well, first time we onboarded a legal client, first thing I said was, well, we can't manage this for you. They're like, why? Like, these are recorded phone calls. That's attorney-client privilege. And, we can't get involved in that. Otherwise, you're basically breaking a law with the bar or your rules with the bar. So, and could potentially get you disbarred. So what we recommend to a lot of our clients is if you are talking to somebody and you sense that it's probably a good lead, you should probably tell the client immediately, say, look, this is a recorded line. Because of attorney-client privilege, I would like to give you a call back. You're still going to get charged for the lead. You're still going to have to call them back and do the deal, but you really don't want that information to be recorded. And I will just stress this again. And that is this, is that if you're an agency and you have a lawyer client and they're like, oh no, you can listen to it all you want. You need to push back on that for your client's sake more than anything else. Navah, what do you think?
Also, I'm glad Jerry in the comments brought that up. That it's not attorney-client privilege until the deal is done. So the thing to remember about the recordings, Google builds into their call technology. Like this call may be recorded for quality assurance purposes. Like that's just part of their call tracking, call recording. So that is disclosed. In addition, one of the best things to do when you're thinking about local service ads is to tie that into any call tracking that you're doing already, and every single call tracking technology under the sun. Shout out to Call Tracking Metrics, who is my absolute favorite, but like all of them are great. Will have a built-in message telling the user that this is being recorded. So you actually, for attribution purposes, want to be using one of those numbers that will inform the user at the onset that there's a recorded call. I personally see this as folks, and I'm sorry to all the lawyers out there, this is lawyers being lawyers as opposed to an actual case that I think will actually change the format of the product. What it might do though, and this would actually be a bad thing if it happens, is actually remove lawyers from the eligible pool. Or just like doctors can't use this, it might remove lawyers from the pool of terms of service. So like, I don't want it to go anywhere, but like that would probably be the outcome.
Yeah, so I think there's one quick key thing, and I probably misspoke on attorney-client privilege, just because I don't think that was ever actually brought up. It was more of a consumer protection concern, was the specific language that came from the North Carolina State Bar. So bottom line, it's still not illegal yet. North Carolina Bar isn't disbarring people who use Google service ads. But again, it's back to the whole consumer privacy issue we talked about earlier on in this broadcast. Keep an eye on that. Be aware of it. Just keep your eyes on this, that this stuff could happen. And it's more of a disclosure thing. And you're right. If California gets involved with this, you can darn well bet they're going to, rake down the hammer on that one. Let me pop into a couple more quick questions, and then we want to wrap this up here. Joshua asked, for LSAs, how long does it typically take to gain traction? We're in personal injury. Our budget was $3,000 per week. Should yield around 13 to 21 leads, but we haven't received one lead yet after 3 weeks. Any thoughts?
There's a couple of reasons. One, how many folks are in your market? Two, do you have any disapproved assets? 3, how many things are in your profile? Depending on the answers to those questions, it's very plausible that it's all just pitfalls as opposed to an actual glitch. But are we also at 2 to 3 weeks from first setting up, i.e. you're still in the background check period, or have we already cleared the background check period and it's live, but just not driving anything? But I don't know if you have any thoughts.
There's just a couple. I mean, there are so many it depends variables going on. Navah, brilliant. Yes, absolutely. All of those things. Little known things is when you initially get your LSA listing signed up, you will also sometimes get away like kind of what they consider a new listing boost. This can actually occur even during the finalization of your background check. So after you submit it, so you might actually get some leads that are coming in like kind of willy-nilly. You'll see like 4 or 5 leads, maybe something like that, depending on market. But yeah, after 2 to 3 weeks after you have been approved, that's when you see a lot start to flow in. But then again, it also, like Navah was saying, it really does depend, because in the first week, I've seen clients that have just gotten a slew of leads, like more than they expected. So yeah, anyway, sorry. Nothing definitive.
Last little quick question I want to throw out here. I thought it was a very interesting question. Do you guys know if LSAs wind up getting blocked by ad blockers? Don't know. That's a great question. I may have to test that. Jason?
I've never seen it happen, so
okay.
Yeah. I mean, I see him in incognito, but that's not ad blocker.
No, it's not ad blocker. It'd be interesting to test. I've never tested it personally, so but I think it's just a good question. Hey, I want to just wrap us up here with a bit of a bittersweet announcement. Did want to let you guys know that this week is the last week that Jason Brown will be with us as a co-host on the program. We've really enjoyed having Jason here for, golly, Jason, what has it been, almost a year and a half, 2 years now?
A year.
Yeah. I've loved having Jason on. He is our resident spam expert. Hopefully he will still be part of the group. But we're going to take just a little brief hiatus here from the broadcast over the next couple of weeks. And Ben and I are going to put our heads together and think about some other ways that we're going to move forward with the program here. But we just wanted to let you guys know that Jason, how much we appreciate you. Loved having you on the program, both personally and professionally.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to just kind of do like a final goodbye to everybody. It's been a lot of fun answering all the should I geotag my photo questions on a weekly basis. But no, honestly, it's been a lot of fun. I talked to Eric about putting this together so that way we could try to cut down on the crud and the echo chambers of all of the bad misinformation. So it's been a lot of fun to educate people, get some of the proper information out, have wonderful, awesome guests on here like my dear friend Navah. So it's been really great to share. But yeah, life is just kind of getting a little bit more on the chaotic side. I've been ramping up a lot of side projects and spam fighting. In fact, I was telling Susan during the middle of this, I was actually reporting another business for running a review contest dating back to August 2018. So my inbox is blowing up. So there's always going to be spam, lots of cool stuff coming. So I'll be around. I'll hop in every once in a while. But thank you everybody for the love and listening to me and heckling me there, Nate, my good bud. So I appreciate it.
And we love you, Jason. I mean, I've done a lot of shows in my time, and you're a wonderful, wonderful co-host. So, I mean, of course, we see each other every day, but, love you here, and absolutely anytime. Of course, you just pop straight back in. You keep that presenter link handy.
Make sure you guys are following Jason out at reviewfraud.org. I give Jason a hard time. I've been asking him to rework his website for a long time, but he's so busy doing stuff. It's kind of like the cobbler's shoes. He's been doing that, but also definitely check him out on, at Kaiser Holiday on Twitter. He's always out there throwing some things out there with it. Lots of great insights. So follow him on Twitter, subscribe to his newsletter out there, go to visit his website. A great way to keep up with him. Jason, we will definitely have you back again, my friend, now and then as a guest and as our resident spam guru and semi-curmudgeon.
We'll always be curmudgeon when it comes to Google and lack of enforcement of abuse. However, let me just say I did tweet to Search Liaison today and said, hey, can we get a sweep on Garage Door? And Danny Sullivan actually liked that tweet. So could that mean we could be seeing some cleanup coming? It would be nice to see. So anyway, where there's spam, there will be me. So thank you guys. I appreciate it.
Guys, follow us on our Facebook group, follow us in our email newsletter. We'll keep you updated on when our next show will be. It'll be a little slightly revamped, but I'm excited about the change, and we will talk to you guys very soon. Cheers.
Later.
Thank you, Navah, very much.
Have a great weekend, everybody.